Welcome everyone. My name is Emme and I'm here to introduce our speaker for today. This is the webinar on how to get your child into a good school, and it's going to be hosted by Shola Alabi. Shola Alabi is a qualified teacher with over 15 years of experience of working with children and supporting their parents. She has worked with thousands of children as a classroom teacher in inner London and Thurrock schools, where she has been graded excellent for her teaching by Ofsted. Currently, Shola owns 2 private tuition centres in Essex and South London, and her centres enjoy a success rate of 90% and above for all her exam year students. However, her proudest moments are when she sees the increase in confidence in her students because she enjoys bringing out the best in every child. It's a pleasure for me to welcome Shola to this webinar, and very soon I'll be turning on the camera so that you can see her, and we'll go straight into the lesson. Just to say that Shola remains an advocate and advisor for parents, and what we're doing here and everything that we're doing online really is just to help support parents, because as she says and has drummed into my head that it's what the parent does that makes all the difference in how well a child does in school. So you're welcome here, parents, and let's welcome Shola.
Oh wow. Welcome everyone. I just want to say thank you very much, Emma, for doing such a good job. I feel really, really honoured. Like she said, yes, I am Shola Alabi. I am a classroom teacher. I am a parent as well. And in today's lesson, I would be talking to you, parents. I mean, I know that you're here as a parent who really wants the best for your child or your children. So I'm really grateful that you've actually come online. What I will be talking about today is something that is very, very dear to my heart. I am very passionate about seeing children blossom, do well in their academics, and as well as grow up to be balanced human beings and effective to their society as a whole. Like Emma said, I have actually been a classroom teacher for over 15 years now. I have been a parent for 17 years. I know you're going, wow. But yes, and over the course of this year, I've actually come across quite a number of different things, that I have always wanted to do something about. And I am actually quite pleased that I'm taking some steps now to try to do something about these things. So, to today's lesson. In today's lesson, I will be talking to us, or I will be trying to show you how we can get our children into a good school. What we will be talking about today is actually in 6 different steps. And what I will be doing is I will be going through these steps. And if you have a question or if you have a comment, please pop the question in the box, and I will be happy to answer the question as well as I could do that. So the first thing I would like to be talking to us about is, what is a good school? I know that some of you might be expecting me to suggest that that's a good school or that's not a very good school. But that's not what I'm going to be doing today. What I will be talking about with regards to choosing a good school or finding a good school for your child or your children is along these lines. So the first thing I would suggest would be, every child is different. I have learned that from my own personal experience as a mom of 2, and with quite a number of children that I have been in contact with over the years, that I've worked in schools and I've worked in my private centres. And for you to be able to decide what a good school will be for your child would be, first of all, identifying the needs of your child. So I would share my story or my experience whilst I was trying, or whilst my husband and I were trying to find out what the best school would be for our children. My older daughter is more academic, I would say. So in the process of looking for how to actually move from primary school, which is year 6, into secondary school, which would be year 7, we looked at all the different options that were available. So one of the things I would actually be suggesting would be, first of all, look at your child, identify the needs of your child. You know, if your child is a highly academic person, then a good school for that type of child would be a school where her academic ability will be extended and challenged, you know, so that she can actually be the best, or she could reach her potential. So what we did was we actually got her to sit some of these highly academic school exams, and she got through into one of the top schools. I would not have wanted to put her through those exams if I knew that she wasn't able to cope or manage, you know, and be able to get through the academic standards within that school. On the other hand, my second child, who is not as academic, but who excels in his sports. I mean, he absolutely loves football, he loves basketball, he loves athletics, he's into any form of sports. I will be doing him a lot of injustice if I choose a school that was highly academic without any of those needs or any of those talents that he has, where he would be challenged, you know, along those talents. So what I am saying in summary is, a good school for child A will in most cases be different for child B. So in choosing or looking for a good school for your child, it would be, I mean, I would suggest, look at the needs of your child, go around, research, look online, you know, visit the school's website, look at what the school has to offer. You know, some schools are very academic, some schools would thrive or are very good in sports, some schools are very good in the creative arts, some schools have a specialist in mathematics and science, some schools are very good in music. So it's putting your child or matching your child with whatever the school has to offer. So if your child is very talented in the area of music, then it would be a good idea to put them in a school where that talent will be developed and improved. So a good school for every child will be based on the child's needs or the talents that the child has. So in summary, yet again, if you're deciding a school for your child, you know, first of all, identify the needs of your child, watch your child, you know, then find out what the school has on offer. So go online, check the websites of the schools. You could get some information about schools' results on the bbc.co website, where they have a list of all the different schools and how they perform. And also, or finally, visit the schools. Most of these schools would have an open evening or an information evening where you could go into the school. Go around the school. What I'd always tell my parents to do is go into the school in person on the information evening, go around the school with your child and ask whoever is taking you around questions. I used to ask them questions as in, you know, why do you like this school? I mean, you've been in this school for a year or two. why do you like the school? And then I'll go on and ask a tricky question from the child and say, what is it about this school you don't really like? Or if you were to choose to come to the school again, would you still like to come to this school? And based on the answers that they give, that's the student who is already in the school, you can actually inform, or you could find out whether, this would be a good school that would suit my child or not really. So please take the time out to go to the schools. And another thing that I'd actually encourage you to do in deciding whether a school is a good school for your child is not just the information evenings or the open evenings. You could go into school on a day where during the daytime when the school is running, so there are lessons happening, phone the school, book an appointment, go in, look around, ask questions from the teachers, look at what happens in lessons, and then if you go through all of these stages, you would have an idea of whether that school will be a good school for your child or not. So in choosing a school for your child, try as much as possible to first of all identify the needs of your child, read about the school online, go in for the open evenings with your child, and lastly, go in, during the daytime to see when things are happening in school, when the students are in classes, when the teachers are teaching, and just go around the school. Most schools actually have an open door policy, but obviously you'd have to ring in and book an appointment and, go in and see how things are run in the school. Like I said earlier on, if you have any questions, please feel free to actually put them in the comment box and I will stop and answer the questions as we go on. Now I'm moving on to the second point, or the second bullet point that I would like to talk about. I know for some of us, we're actually thinking, oh, there are different kinds of schools. What are the differences, Schools fall into two main groups. The first group is the schools that are funded by the state, which are the state-funded schools, and they're called the state schools, and within that group, the grammar schools would actually fall under that group, and also there are the comprehensive schools. I would actually talk a bit more about that in a minute. And the second group, or the second main class, apart from the state-funded schools, are the schools that are fee-paying, and they're usually called the independent schools or the private schools, and some of them are referred to as public schools. So quite a few confusion there, So the first category of schools is the state-funded schools. So you've got the comprehensive schools, which are the schools that you don't have to have any form of selection test. Your child can just get placed into that school if you live within the catchment area of that comprehensive school. And also, under the state-funded, we have the grammar schools. And I would just say that with the grammar schools, there are some of them that you'd have to pay fees. But for the most of them, the majority of them, you'd have to take a selection test, which is taken in the first term of year 6, when your child is in year 6. So it's the grammar schools where you'd have to take a test. And for most schools, it's not really advertised. So a lot of parents do miss out or do not realize that there is that option for them. So
can I stop you there? We have a question.
Okay.
Somebody's asking, what are the advantages, and that you should compare the advantages and disadvantages of independent grammar school.
Okay. I was actually going to get to that, but thank you very much for that question. Okay. In a grammar school, in most of them, except for some that are schools where you'd have to board, and I think there's the Manchester Grammar School that you'd have to pay fees. But for all the other ones, the majority of them, it's non-fee paying. But you would have to write specific exams, you know, depending on what county that your child or you live in. I mean, you could actually register for the exams in different counties, but your child would have to sit as an exam to be able to get a place. And these exams are highly competitive. So a grammar school, you'd have to write exams. It's non-fee paying. So if your child gets through the 11 plus and they do really well, they are entitled to get a place. But in an independent school, you have to pay fees. Although there are some situations whereby you could actually get help towards the fees. You know, you can apply for either a scholarship, or you could get your child to actually, or prepare your child for scholarships. And also, you could also get some help, which is means tested, which are called the bursaries. So with a grammar school, it's non-fee paying. You just need to make sure that your child gets through the exams, does really well, so they could be offered a place in the grammar schools. But in the independent schools, they are fee paying. In a grammar school, I mean, my daughter actually attended a grammar school, and what I know is the skills that your child needs to become resilient. That means being highly tenacious and being able to face anything, you know, that is being put before them. For them to actually become, you know, they do develop their presentation skills, you know, their academic standards are generally higher than what you would find in some of the other comprehensive schools. And kids that normally go to the grammar schools, or usually go to the grammar schools, would have actually gone through the selection process. So for most of them, they will be highly able children. So it would be a place where your children are having to contend with like-minded students. It's similar with independent schools as well, because of course they would have to go through a common entrance exam to be able to be offered a place, you know. So those are the advantages of your child getting into a grammar school, or some of the advantages of your child getting a place in a grammar school or an independent school. But the main difference between the both of them is, you know, in a grammar school, you don't have to pay fees, but in an independent school, you know, you would have to pay some kind of tuition fees or fees for your child to be offered a place. Okay, so I hope I did answer the question. So I would actually just be moving on. Sorry, Emma.
Timmy is loving the session, and I'm also loving it myself.
Oh,
I
cool.
want to ask a question.
Thank you.
So, please educate me.
Okay.
If I live in one county,
Okay.
I can just clarify. If I live in one county, I can get my child into a grammar school in any other county, as long as they pass the exam, whatever the exams are.
Yes. Okay. I would actually explain that in a bit more detail. You could register your child. I mean, I do encourage my parents to register their children, because I'm in Thurrock, so the county that has the grammar schools next door nearby would be the Kent County as well as the Essex County. So I encourage my parents, actually, we do encourage them to write the Bexley exams as well. So if your child does really well, for some of these schools, they do have a catchment policy whereby your child would have to be living within the catchment, but there's also opportunities for children who live out of the catchment, and there is a percentage of children that they would be offering a place who are out of the catchment area, you know. But it would be a case of your child doing extremely well, because of course, for some of them, it might be the top 20% who are out of catchment would be offered a place, you know. So you could apply for schools out of your own catchment area or in a different county. But another thing you'd have to bear in mind is, how would your child be traveling to school. So if you live within Purfleet, where I live, and your child is being offered a place in Chelmsford, you'd have to think about, how will I get my child to school? Are there any transport? I mean, is there any transport link for my child to get to school? So yes, you can apply for schools out of your own catchment area, and if your child does really well, they fall within the percentage, they can be offered a place. So does that answer the question, Mimi?
Yes, it answers.
Cool. Okay. So please keep the questions coming. The next thing I would now like to talk about is, I mean, I could still come back to the grammar schools, I'll come back to the comprehensive schools, and also come back to the independent schools. I am not for any reason, you know, knocking down one school against the other. What I am just trying to say, or what I'm trying to encourage us as parents to do, is identify the strengths of your child and support them, work with them. One thing that I have come to realize, and I have concluded and believe in, is that every child has greatness in them. There is potential, a lot of potential actually, in every single child. You know, what we need to do as parents is to actually dig deep, you know, into our children, get that thing out, and walk with them, you know, one step at a time. And to be honest with you, they will surely get there. So back to what I was saying, if your child has the ability, or your child is highly talented, they're gifted in one subject or the other, enhance this, develop this, work with your child, you know, and make sure you get the best, bring the best out of your child. Yes, Emma, I can see your hand up. Go on.
Okay, so I have another question. It says, D says, what if your child is average or just needs a little push and can thrive in an academic environment? Mm-hmm. Is it good advice to send such a child to an academic school? So if your child is like kind of just average, but you know, you feel that you can push them, is it still good advice to, you know, make them go to an academic school?
I don't see any reasons why.
It's almost just follow on what you just really saying.
Yes.
You know, looking at your child's abilities and then still being able to push them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, I have had a lot of children who have actually started with me, you know, who at the point of the assessment, they were average, you know, and they have actually made their way into, you know, top academic grammar schools, independent schools. What I'd always suggest is, you know, identify what your child is capable of doing. So if your child is an average child, work with your child. If you need to get extra support, by all means, do it. Get somebody to work with your child, and as well, keep an eye on what whoever is supporting your child is doing. And little by little, you know, building on top of what they know or what they have, starting early enough, which is what I will be sharing again, I mean, as we go on. Yes, your child can actually get a place. But one thing I would say is, know your child's ability. Make sure as early as you can, build or develop your child's basic core skills. That's something that I'd always suggest to any of my parents or friends who would actually ask me, or what can I do? How can I help? You know, that is the number one thing that I'd always say, you know, in order to help your child, not just to get a place in the school. That's one thing I'd never encourage anyone to do, just to crash your child to get through, because once they're crashed in most cases, they will be crashed out. what I would always suggest, or what I'd always say, and I'm actually saying out to you as well, and just encouraging you to do as parents, is work with your child, develop the core skills. I have actually put them in 6 different groups, and I would be sharing that as we go on. Develop these skills early enough. I talk about early intervention, the importance of intervening early. Once these are sorted out, once the foundation is right, to be honest with you, you can build on top of that. So get the foundations right. You have identified that your child is, an average child. There's nothing stopping him or her. If you get the right strategies in place, get support if you need to, get the right resources, set up a study plan, work with your child, and yes, they will be able to get through. Thank you.
So I have another question here, but let me just say how I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
That you don't advise us as parents to do lastminute.com and try and make our children, take these exams like at the last minute, but actually start preparing them early and start developing their skills early, so that they get good enough to be able to not just get into the school, but actually be able to stay in the school and thrive in the school.
Yes. What I suggest to parents that I support is the earlier you actually start, the better. What I tend to do, or what I do with mine as well as the other children that I support, is I start them as soon as possible. There are different resources that are age appropriate that you could use to develop these skills that I will be talking about in your children. I, for one, don't believe in crashing. If you'd crash all of these things into your child, in most cases, what happens is they get through, and trust me, it is very challenging. Of course, they expect your child to be at a particular standard or a level to be able to cope. The homework comes in, day out, and they're expected to cope. So if your child has actually been crushed through the program and the foundations are not there, they will, in most cases, not be able to cope. And then what happens is they start playing up in class because they can't cope with what's going on. So I advise generally, or I would normally suggest or advise that you'd need to start them off early.
As early as possible.
As early as possible.
So the question I have here is, what are the main subjects that will be in the test for grammar exam? I guess that will take you to the core skills.
To the core skills. Okay.
And how many grammar schools is one able to apply for each child? That's Anandi. So what are the subjects?
Oh, hi, Anandi. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for tuning in. Okay. You are able to apply, on the school application form, you've got 6 choices. So you can actually apply for 6 grammar schools, but saying that, you would have to have registered your child, or prepared your child and registered your child to sit the exams. Say, for example, in our case, where we're in Thurrock, you could, apply for your child to sit the Essex exams, which they would be able to apply to all the grammar schools within the Essex consortium. You could also apply or register your child to sit the Kent exams, and that would give your child the opportunity to apply for all the schools within the Kent county. You could also register your child to sit the exams in Bexley, and then that would also give your child the opportunity to apply, or the option to apply for the schools in Bexley, But the most important thing is you'd register your child to sit the exams, because if you do not register your child for these exams, they would not be able to sit the exams. So registration, which is actually happening now, for all of you parents who have children in year 5, you should have actually registered, for the Essex exams. That's within Essex, because that's my territory. And for the Kent exams is in June, so from the 1st of June, and I think the closing date will be in July. And for Essex as well, and Bexley, for all of you parents who have children in year 5 and are in our territory, it's now time for you to start registering your child to sit for the exam. And that's different from, the school application form, where you would actually be making your choices, So the first thing is preparing your child, getting them ready. The next thing is registering them to write the exams or sit the exams. And then, the third thing would be then writing the exams. And then you get the results for those exams, and then you make the choices in October, so there's a deadline for your local authority where you'd have to get the forms. And then on that form, you'd have, in our local authority in Thurrock, you have the options of choosing 6 of these schools that your child has actually been successful in the exams. So I hope I've answered the question. So where was I? Okay, I think I was talking about the core skills. Yes, so as I was saying earlier on, that the core skills that I have actually put in 6, different groups. And I mean, under those core skills, they can actually be broken down into little bits, but I will just talk about the 6 core skills that I, have been working with children, working with parents over the years, think should be developed, so that your child has a good chance of passing and doing really well in this exam. So the first one would be reading. I mean, I know that might sound really funny, but reading and reading well, which then takes me on to comprehension. So I'll put those two together, reading and being able to comprehend what your child is reading. So that's a skill. It sounds really simple, but I have found out, actually, especially with my son, I always go on and on about my son, bless him, I love him to bits, and I'm really glad that he's actually done us proud. He would read, and I'd ask him questions, I mean, okay, from the paragraph you've read, tell me what it means to you. What do you understand from what you've just read? And he would be looking at me blank. I've read it, Mom. And I'm thinking, yeah, you have read it, but explain to me or tell me what you've read in your own words. And he would be reading it out to me again. So what we then did, or what we did, some of the tips I am sharing, which I did with him, is we get the book, we sit down together, he reads one paragraph, I will explain what I understand from that paragraph, and then it will be my turn, I'll read the next paragraph, and then it will be his turn to explain what his understanding of that paragraph means. So that is reading as well as comprehending. Comprehension means understanding what you're reading, putting yourself in the story, asking yourselves questions. What are the characters? What are they talking about? Comprehension is not just about reading and answering the questions. We need to develop that skill of helping our children to actually read, and as they read, the 2-3 sentences, they understand what they are reading. The next core skill that I would be talking to us about is, still on literacy, is the handwriting. For some of these exams...
Can I just stop you there? There's a question.
Please remind me where I was.
Yes, loving the topic, says Tunde, and then M asks, how early or what age should we start getting children ready for the 11 plus exams?
Oh, fantastic. Actually, that was my next one, but I might as well answer the question now. I would say, okay, going back to the core skills, that you could start developing from when the child is 3, to be honest. Once they start speaking, once they start learning how to read, you know, how to sound the letters, looking at pictures, what's that picture, you know, the cat is on the mat. Why is the cat on the mat? You know, what is a mat? So that's comprehension, reading. But starting to prepare them in a formal way, I always suggest to start when they're in the summer term. So around this time in year 3. So for all the bits that you've actually deposited into them, for all the skills you've developed, you could then start giving them some formal type of questions. And one of my favorite resources, which I will be sharing before we finish, is the bond assessment tests. I love the bond books. I really love them, you know, and I worked with them with my own children from the age of 5. And with these books, there are papers, you know, and there are age appropriate as well, you know. So with the 5 to 6 year olds, once your child is able to read, once your child is secure with their number skills, you know, you could start them off, you know, and gradually get them to start getting used to those type of problem solving questions, you know, and talking them through. So I would always advise that you'd start them in the summer term of year 3. And what I mean by formal preparation is get them into a routine whereby maybe on Wednesday evening or on Tuesday evening, they sit down for a couple of minutes and walk through some of these materials or some of these tests, or, you know, so it's just a formal way of getting them used to having a study routine. And so I suggest the summer term of year 3. And
that's what age?
Reception will be 5, year 1 will be 6, 7, year 2 will be 7, 8. By the age of 8, going on 9, I would say. But I remember I started my daughter when she was 7. I started her on this formal, you know, sitting down twice a week when she didn't have any other extracurricular after school activities, and, you know, gradually at her own pace. Because with this, I mean, and the reason why I love the bond books and I'm an advocate for the bond books, I don't get any shares from them, but they're a very good resource, trust me. The reason why I'd always recommend the bond books is because they are age appropriate, and I can't remember exactly the number of questions, but in the 5 to 6 books, there will be just a number of questions, you know, and the questions actually build up gradually in numbers and the level of difficulty as the age increases.
I think that's very useful, because I think when parents try to get their children into these schools, some people feel, oh, you're pushing this child too hard, you know, they're too young for you to put them under that kind of pressure. I've heard and seen people say that kind of thing. Why should you put a little 6-year-old under that kind of pressure? But then it makes sense to, you know, to actually work with them, but in a way that's age appropriate. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, I did say about my daughter, he was 7, but with my son, to be honest with you, I mean, I had a bit more time on my hands. So from the age of 5, we make it fun, we make it interactive, you know. I try as much as possible to make him enjoy, you know, what he's doing. So what we do, I mean, another resource which I've used with my children all throughout primary school was an online resource which is called Education City. That online resource is absolutely amazing, and for those that know me very well, I must have actually advised you to get that for your child. It's fun, but they're learning, So what I tend to use this for is to build structure, because once there is structure in place, then at an early age, our kids tend to understand and know that, yes, it's learning time and it's fun time, So there is a time for everything. So it's just getting our children into that thinking mode, that way of thinking, that pattern, and they do adjust and adapt, quickly. So I hope that answered the question, Emmy. And back to my core skills. Thanks, Emmy. So the second one was legible handwriting. So the first one is reading and comprehension skills. The second one is legible handwriting, writing skills. And what I mean by that is their handwriting. For most of these exams, I know for the Kent exams, the children would have to do a writing task where they would have to write, the writing question. They're given topics and they're meant to write about the topics, or choose from a number of topics and write. But if a child has not developed handwriting that is legible, for the examiner to read, it doesn't matter how beautifully the writing is laid out, or how they've actually displayed their writing techniques or their writing structure or their writing skills, it will be hard for the examiner to read. So what I'd always say, and I actually call it a core skill that your child has to have, is to develop their handwriting, make it legible, get them writing frameworks, there's quite a few of them, and get them to write, legible handwriting, so it could be read. The next one is, still on literacy, is have an extensive vocabulary. Like I said earlier on, for some of these entrance exams, private school exams, independent school exams, same thing, grammar school exams, they need to display their writing skills. They would have to do some form of creative writing, some form of descriptive writing, So a child who actually has extended their vocabulary will be able to write beautifully. Their writing would capture any reader, and also they would be able to cope with most of these questions, especially with the reasoning and the comprehension type questions, if they have an extensive vocabulary. I suggest, and this is what I do with most of my students and my children, we actually do a word game. We play a word game. We come up with a word, and we find out what it means, and we all have a dictionary. I've got mine on my phone, an app. My son has an electronic dictionary where we quickly, and whoever gets the answer quick enough would be getting a reward. So we actually play the game and we score at the end of the day. And by so doing, we're extending our vocabulary. I'm extending mine. My children, my students are extending theirs as well. And that's one of the other skills I encourage. So that's number 1, number 2, number 3. Number 4 is, now moving on to numeracy, I beg your pardon, is having the basic arithmetic skills. And what I mean by that is being able to add properly, take away properly, multiply properly, and divide properly. And being able to actually do this mentally as well, because for most of these exams, they are timed. So having the basic arithmetic skills intact, and also being able to, cope with this arithmetic skills of sums mentally is also an advantage. So developing that as well is very important, The next one is, I'm just trying to look through my notes here, guys. is times tables. Yes, and actually, not only for the 11 plus exams now. I mean, there's a new thing with the new curriculum whereby every child before they leave primary school will have to do a times table test, and they will be timed. So back in the days when we had to chant our times table, you know, and we had to go 6 times 8 is 48, 5 times 2 is 10. So just making sure that your child has or knows their times table, or looking for strategies where they could actually, you know, double the 2s to get the 4 times tables, double the 4s to get the 8 times tables. Just making sure that their times table skills are sharp, are quick, because they need those skills in timed exam conditions to be able to walk quickly through the questions. I think I'm on number 5. And the last skill is, yes, problem solving skills. I mean, being able to solve problems, you know, in maths, because most of the questions, in as much as they've got the basic arithmetic skills, they've got the timetable skills intact, they need to be able to apply these skills appropriately to solving problems. You know, so say for example, thinking about an easy one here, there were 5 birds on the tree, 3 birds flew away. How many birds are left on the tree? So that's just applying their taking away skills, subtraction skills, you know. So it's just being able to problem solve. And I know that quite a lot of my children, you know, at the early stages find this tricky. So we start off with the first step problems, making them understand, again, going back to comprehension, understanding what the question's been given, and then going to find out what the question is asking you to do, you know. So it could be in 1 step, it could be in 2 steps, it could be a 3-step problem. So developing the skills. And I would go back again to the bond assessment papers. I love the bond books.
Let me ask a question.
Yes.
Anandi asks about the bond books, since you mentioned that.
Yes.
She says, with the bond books, there are so many.
Mm-hmm.
Is it essential to go through all of them? She says there's book 1, book 2, quick tests, etc.
Okay. What I'd always advise is, would use an example. Say, for example, your child is working through the 7 to 8 bond assessment papers, books. I would always advise, I'd always tell my parents to get their children to walk through the individual tests or papers, and then they score them, you know, mark them. And at the back of the books, there is a chart. You know, I love those charts. It gives you a summary of how your child is doing. So if your child is actually getting 95% all throughout, then there's no need for you to go through book 2. You could then move on to the next age. But if your child is actually, you know, and I know that the books as well do advise on if your child is between 70 and 75%, do book 2, or if your child is actually achieving 95% or 90%, move on to the next age. So this will depend on how your child is performing or what your child is achieving in the tests or in the papers. Does that answer the question, Anandi?
Okay.
Yeah.
I have another question, one from Adenike. She says, thanks for answering my first question. Now she knows she's not a scary mom if she's starting with her child at the age of 5.
No.
So anyway, her second question is, what are the importance of extracurricular activities for children, and are they necessary?
Yes. I, for one, and I know that there's a lot of my parents out there who actually believe in a well-rounded, balanced child. It is important to expose your child to other extracurricular activities. I have done that with my children. and I'm still doing it with them. What I know, or the benefits of this is, you get to know your child. You get to know your child's gifts. You can tell what their talents are, and then you can develop those, and make them skillful in those gifts. So yes, it's good to expose them to different extracurricular activities, but obviously having the right balance, So I would not be suggesting that you're rushing all around, Monday all the way through to Sunday, and you're struggling. Your child is drained, tired, exhausted, So it's just having the right balance, but it's very, very good to expose your child to extracurricular activities. So you can actually know what they're very good at. And like I'd always say, what they're good at. They will be very confident in that, whatever they're good at. And then they can transfer that skill, of being confident into all the other areas of their lives that matter. So yes, I suggest, or I encourage you expose them to other extracurricular activities. Okay, so going back to, where was I, Emma? The skills. Okay, the core skills. So we've talked about the core skills, and like I said earlier on, I have just, put them into 6 different main areas, and there's still quite a lot, under those 6 areas that can be developed, and that, we could talk about at a later date. So
it's very interesting, the core skills, because what I see is that they tend to be quite simple. Yeah, so they're not like you're doing any massive thing. So the main thing is really for you to be doing it regularly or consistently. Because like the reading and the handwriting and maybe getting them to read books to get their vocabulary, or so all those things are like not big things as such. It's just that you want to be doing them, start early and do them regularly.
Okay, so the last bit that I would actually be talking about, I was going to talk about, what the exam, what the exams and what subjects, or what subjects the exams to get into the grammar schools, I beg your pardon, as well as some of the independent schools. They actually fall into 4 different subject areas. So you've got the maths, you've got English, which would obviously be testing the child on their grammar skills, their punctuation skills, comprehension skills, creative writing, the ability to write, and interest the reader. You've got the reasoning, which are the verbal reasoning and the non-verbal reasoning. So children would actually be tested, and the tests actually differ from exam to exam. So say, for example, the Essex County exams would test, they test on maths and English only, but of course in that there are some reasoning within the maths, non-verbal reasoning, spatial awareness, and also some verbal reasoning questions within the English paper. The Essex exams, which have been changed very recently as well, I think about 2 years ago, they've got the maths exam, they've got the English exam, and they've got reasoning as well, with the verbal and non-verbal spatial awareness within the paper. So those are the subjects that the child will be tested on. And the exams are actually, they're different bodies. There's the GL type exams, I'm rushing this now. There's GL type exams, or the GL type questions, and also there are the CEN, which I call the SEN, which are, the papers are actually written by Durham University, and that started also a couple of years ago. So
I don't know whether this is relevant, because I'm not really understanding the question, but
okay.
Anne says, great session. Are you saying Essex has included NVR in their exams?
It's not an MVR paper, but within the maths paper or the maths test, the maths paper, there are some special awareness questions in there. So I know that this actually falls between maths as well as special awareness or non-verbal reasoning. There are other questions on nets. So there might be a question on the net of a cube, you know, which is obviously testing the spatial awareness of a child, you know, the being able to look at a net of a cube and being able, I mean, non-verbal reasoning is mostly to do with shapes, you know, being switched around or turned around. So there is a question or two in the maths paper that will be testing them on that skill. But there's not a separate non-verbal reasoning paper. No, that's not the case. But in the maths test, there would be one or two questions that will be testing their non-verbal reasoning skills.
Okay. Yeah. Sadiat asks also that, thanks for sharing your experience. Please, will you be sharing how to prepare a child for GCSE later?
Yes. The last thing that I was actually going to be talking about, which was on there, was how to prepare your child for these exams. And I do have a few tips, and I'm trying to get them from my notes here, so please bear with me. Yes, and actually, you've taken it out of my head, because there will be a follow-on session to this session in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, where I will be also having a class or a session on how to prepare your child for different exams. So not specific for the entrance school exams, but for GCSE exams, for SATs exams, Key Stage 2 SATs, Key Stage 3, actually that's not, but there's teacher assessments for any kind of exam. And some of the things that I would be sharing would be, or what I would like to share would be how to cope with exam anxiety. So that I have actually noticed, you know, that is affecting quite a lot of our children and us parents as well, you know. I mean, like I shared in one of my videos, that the whole of last year, I was actually full of a lot of anxiety because both of my children were facing exams. My older one was actually going through the GCSE exams, and my younger one was going through all the common entrance exams, the 11+ exams. And it was as if I was the one writing the exams. I don't know why, you know. I mean, we did all the preparation, we did what we could, but I will be also, you know, sharing about that in the follow-on class, about how to prepare your child for exams, you know, and how to cope with exam anxiety and pressure. So just a few tips here before I round up on how to prepare your child for the exams, or what to do with the exams. I'm looking for my notes here a minute. Where is it? Okay, I think I will just share this from my notepad here. Okay, one of the things that I'd always suggest is, when you're preparing, or when your child is preparing for exams, there's just about 3 or 4 of them, which I would just leave with you, is the first thing is, have a sit-down meeting with your child. You know, sit down with them, encourage them, have a chat. What I said to my daughter and my son, actually we had a family meeting with my husband, and we said, we're in this together, and we are going to support you. We're going to have a study plan. So the second thing is, first of all, have a sit down with your child. Find out how they're feeling, you know. Find out what's going through their minds. And then once they share that with you, assure them, tell them it's going to be okay. We'll do anything we can to make sure we walk through. Don't worry, don't stress. We're in it together. And truly and surely, we sat down together, did the revisions together, cried together, wiped the tears together, took the next step together, and trust me, we got there, thank God. So the first thing, have a sit down with your child, have a chat with them, and of course, gradually, have these sit down meetings. The second thing, create a study plan. For my daughter, she sat down and she did the revision plan, the study plan, and she sent it to me, we looked at it together, and we actually revised and reviewed this as we went along, because I'd noticed initially she was overambitious, and I thought, there's no way on earth we'll be able to do this. Let's take little steps. I mean, we started planning early enough, and then we would review it after a couple of weeks. So have a study plan, and don't be rigid. I had to tell myself that a couple of times, be flexible. So have a study plan, get a calendar, write all the different dates down, stick this as well as the study plan in a communal area, we put it on the fridge in the kitchen, it could be in the living room, where when you walk past it, it kind of reminds us that, yes, we're walking towards, success, we're taking every step on a daily basis, so have a pet chat or have a chat with your child, have a study plan or create a study plan, put the study plan as well as a calendar with all the dates and the deadlines, that you need to meet, the registration dates, the exam dates, and put them where it's visible for everybody to see. You could also set those dates up on your alarm on your phone, or you could set alarms on your phone, on your iPad, whatever works for you, so you don't miss any of these deadlines. Because to be honest with you, whilst you're going through, there will be quite a lot of things going on in your head. So just set those alarms so you don't forget or miss any of the deadlines. Next thing, get somewhere comfortable, warm, away from any distractions, where your child could stay focused. What I always suggest to my parents, and what I did with my daughter, was get a table, comfortable, warm, it could be in the dining room, not where the television is on, because that's a distraction, somewhere where they can actually be focused. And also, revision time differs from child to child. Again, that brings me to my normal saying, every child is different. So for some children, and until you actually practice these things, you wouldn't know, they can sit down for half an hour and be focused. For some children, they can sit down for a whole hour, not mine, and stay focused. So you need to kind of try this to see which one works for your child. And without any distractions, get the phones away, away from the telephone ringing, away from any kind of distraction, and let them be focused. Let them try different revision strategies, For some kids, what I'd always say is, or I'll tell my daughter and the children that I teach, is you know something once you can retell it. So what I used to do with my daughter, I remember a couple of weeks ago when she was preparing for her mocks, she's in year 12 now, and she was talking about economics. So she would read a little bit and she would come to me and say, Mom, macroeconomics, what is demand and supply? And she would, say what it is. And then she said, oops, I forgot that. Then she would go back, make a note of that, go back and revisit that, So retelling things, get your kids to talk to you about chemistry. What does a fractional distillation mean? What happens to crude oil? Let them talk it through and make notes, so then they can go and fill in the gaps. That is what I, do with my children and the kids I teach. So revision strategies. Next thing is feed them. They need to be fed. they need to eat regularly.
About food.
Yes, and they need to eat healthy. Try as much as possible getting closer to the exam to reduce unhealthy stuff, sugary stuff, fizzy drinks, because it actually, makes them hyperactive and they lose focus and concentration. But make sure they eat regularly. They drink water. They drink water because that actually helps their hydration, and it keeps them focused and helps their concentration levels. And I think the last thing which I would suggest is reviewing, sitting down with them, regularly, finding out how they're doing, checking how they're coping, because pressure builds up, anxiety comes in. So checking up with how they're doing, finding out how they're coping, from time to time. And like I said earlier on, with my son, we cried a lot, we wiped the tears, and we'd moved on. We had lots of rewards, for doing A, B, or C. And rewards could be, well, for my son, would be having a game of football on FIFA. That's his number one thing, football. Like most of you who know me or know him. So it's just finding out how they're doing, making sure they're coping okay. The mental well-being is important, and also reassuring them, making them understand that whatever they're reading is sitting in their brain, they should not worry. It would come back when they need it, And another thing is speaking positive words. I pray a lot. I speak positive words. I confess, what I want to see happen. And we do it together as well, So just checking up on them. And that's the last thing I would say. Making sure they're coping okay. Affirming them. Speaking positive words to them. And to be honest, they will make good success.
Okay, I have 2 questions here for you.
Yes, the questions are coming in.
So how many hours should your children be studying a week? I think you've already said that.
Yes.
I know it can depend on how close the exam is, but what approximately?
Okay.
And then she says she sometimes, as Anandi, sometimes feels she's doing too much or making them doing too much. And another time she feels she's not considering the competition. So that's one question. I'll bring the other one.
Okay, the first question is how much time? Like I said earlier on, have a study plan. So, well, depending on the age of the child, I know for Anandi, it's what you could do is maybe half an hour in the morning, and maybe half an hour in the afternoon as well. It depends on your routine as well, which is some of the things I actually share with the parents I support. We'd go through a questionnaire of what your routine is like, over the week, because that's, you'd have to be, it has to be realistic, so half an hour in the morning if you're not rushing off in the morning, or half an hour in the afternoon. So depending on the age of the child, and also from child to child. My daughter said to me, last couple of weeks ago, Mom, I'd realized that if I sit down for an hour, I get distracted. So it's better for me to do 20 minutes and then have a 5-minute break, stretch, go out, get some fresh air, have a drink, check my phone, bless her, and then do another 20 minutes, and then have another 5-minute break or 10 minutes and have something to eat, and then come back. So it's just trying what works for your child, Meanwhile, I know of, some of the children that I teach who would sit down for an hour and be focused, they'll set all of their programs on, or they would record them and then forget about those, sit down for an hour, sit down for 2 hours, and, bury themselves into that. So it depends on your child, you know, but I would suggest, you know, sitting down for half an hour, maybe in the morning, having a break, and then another half an hour.
Okay. Dupsy asked a question which I think might be on the mind of more than one of the parents.
Okay.
And she says, what will a parent who is not academically strong do then? And she says, what if she's not empowered to teach their child like you are?
Okay.
Probably not even financially strong to get a private tutor. So
there are, thank you very much, Dipsy, for that question. Thank you for that compliment. Academically empowered, yeah. What I suggest to some of my parents that I support, you know, and my friends as well, is there are resources online. Okay, say for example, we're working on fractions. You could Google how to add fractions. And it's free. There's quite a lot of free resources on the internet that you could tap into, you know. Get the child to sit down, of course, with your assistance and guidance, watching over what they're doing. And then there are videos where you could actually, where you're taught on how to tackle some of these things. It's just making sure as parents, I'm not suggesting, you know, sitting down and teaching if you haven't got the capacity to do that, but knowing what is happening or what they need to know, you know, which you can find out from school or, you know, from resources online for your child, you want your child to prepare for specific exams, finding out what they are. So say, for example, the specifications, what they need to know, and then just typing those onto the internet, you know, and there will be a lot to choose from. And of course, your child will be able to say, oh yeah, that's what we were doing. And then that could be a way by which you could support your child if you cannot afford to hire a tutor or get help from a private tutor, or if you're not empowered to be able to teach your child the skills.
Some parents might find reading is fine, but the maths, you know, they're not confident in maths or vice versa. So yeah, it helps you.
And actually, there's something else that's coming to mind now. While you were talking, Emma, is I know that when my son was in, I think it was in year 2, at his school, they had some workshops. They were free, you know, for parents to attend and to find out how they can transfer some of the skills they're learning at school in maths, you know. And there were actually some handouts that were handed out to us then that we could take and use with the kids at home to support them at home. So there's some of the schools, you know, that do have this workshop
from the school.
Yes.
Okay. Somebody has just mentioned that there's a YouTube channel called Wacky Maths, and you can learn different topics.
Yeah, I know that one of my maths teachers uses that. Yes.
Yes. So,
Okay. So, I think we're done now, Emma.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So I would like to say thank you very much for everyone who is actually taking the time out to log on. Yes, I was going to go to that. And also, like I said earlier on, that there will be a follow-on workshop within the next 3 or 4 weeks, which will be going into a lot more detail on how to prepare your child for any of these exams. And also, another thing that is really dear to my heart, which I have actually noticed, you know, and which I said had actually happened to me last year, is as parents and as well as our children, having anxiety, you know, exam anxiety, how to cope with that, you know, and how to be able to learn techniques and strategies on how to deal with this, so your child does not, you know, lose marks because of that, because of nerves or because of exam anxiety. So there should be a blue, Emma, correct me if I'm wrong, there should be a blue button
at the bottom of the screen.
At the bottom of the screen. If you would be interested or you would like to attend the workshop, or you would like to be informed about when it is, and what will be discussed, what the workshop will be about, please click on that button and kindly fill in your details. I am really grateful. I am very, very grateful for your support.
You're getting a lot of thank yous from
Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Oh, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Adenike. Thank you, Dixie. Thank you, Kunle. Thank you, Tunde. Thank you very much, everyone, for logging in. And like I said earlier on, this is something that I'm very passionate about. One thing I love to see is our children, which is the next generation, getting to where they need to get to, you know, fulfilling their destinies, getting the greatness that is inside of them out for the world to see. So I am very, very encouraged by your response. And until next time, I will be in touch. And once again, thank you very much for logging in. That's all from me. Until next time. Bye.
The replay will be available in a couple of hours, and I will email you the link to watch the replay if you're interested in watching it again. And that should also be on the website www.sholaalabi.com. That should be up in a couple of hours. Thanks again and have a good day. Bye.